This week, I practice my twist serve.
And I try to explain how that's not even close to a real thing.
Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett.
And we watch anime. Garrett, this episode was important in your journey moving forward. Thank you for both of us for cosplaying white tennis players.
It was not hard. I opened my closet and I picked a shirt.
It was like you were already like ready to become a Seigaku regular for the sake of this episode. You know, you hissed your way through your closet and was ready to go. But this episode is really important. Now, this anime is from a different time. It's an old anime, The Prince of Tennis. Just to kind of give you a reason why I decided to choose this, because I feel it's important for you to dip your toe into the world of sports anime.
Okay.
So before we start, I'm going to give you a brief introduction on what The Prince of Tennis was. The original run of the manga started in 1999. So this is one of the older animes we cover. Not as old as Cowboy Bebop, but one of the older ones. And the anime wasn't officially made until 2001, and I'm pretty sure you saw the date of it in its animation and its style. But so, to begin, Garrett, tell me, what was your initial thoughts and your experience with watching The Prince of Tennis?
The guy who wrote the intro loves his guitar solos because it's like a minute and a half of like
tennis.
Prince of Tennis.
Prince of Tennis.
I don't know what to tell you, man. It's an absurd show. I mean, this ran for several years, and I have no idea how they kept interest in each show. Essentially has like one pivotal match in it, and that is just like the crux of it. And then anyway, okay, so let's circle back here. Prince of Tennis. You want me to give the rundown?
Yeah, give a rundown of what you learned about the story, about the trials and tribulations of Ryoma Echizen.
Okay, so Ryoma is a 12-year-old
12 by
tennis
the way.
Player. 12, right.
He's a child.
12. Yes. And apparently he is a prodigy. And he actually kind of reminded me, in our last podcast, we talked about a type of girlfriend archetype called kurere, which is sort of like the cool customer, you can't get a reaction out of them. So if there was like a male version of that, that's what Ryoma is, because he no-sells everything, just like, you know, oblivious to the people around him. There's this one girl who's cute and keeps trying to talk to him, and he's like, huh? Who are you? I don't remember who you are. And you're like, do you have a brain injury? Like,
it's from people throwing rackets out of his face,
right,
like in the second episode.
So he's a prodigy. And in the first episode, it kicks it off. He is in this tournament, and he's up against a 16-year-old. And of course, a 16-year-old is like, who do you think you are? Because if we know anything about anything, a middling 16-year-old tennis player will crush a prodigy 12-year-old because the speed and strength is not even close to one another. However, this is anime, so who the hell cares? And so Ryoma beats him, and while he's at this tournament, there's this cute little girl, also a little girl because he's 12.
He's 12.
Who develops a crush on him, and her aunt or her grandma, I can't remember.
I think it was her
one.
aunt, but I think it's like more like a great aunt, because she shows it. She shows it in the jowl region of her age.
So she is very much into tennis and wears the sweatsuit of a woman who lives with her friend Linda in the countryside.
Her cousins.
And raises dogs. But
their sisters or cousins are they're not lovers at all.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so she actually is the coach or the head of the local private school or local school's men's and women's tennis program. So she's very much in and around tennis, and she's like, oh, you don't know Ryoma? So the aunt is a very cool character. She's, probably one of the more realistic and grounded people
Yeah.
Because when guys who are teenagers who play tennis run into Ryoma, they get irrationally mad that he has any talent whatsoever.
I would argue that Ryoma is a rare case in sports anime of like an unlikable main character. I would say the entire time there were, because I've watched this anime all the way through to like season 3, and I remember thinking there was like at least 3 episodes where I was rooting for the villain. Like I was rooting for the person to just beat Ryoma. He's not likable. He's not a likable character at all. He's, as you said, he's dense, but he's also like really rude. Like he's kind of a stuck-up jerk, for lack of a better term. But within that time, So continue on. Like, what was his deal? Why, you know?
Well, so Kyle watched up 3-4 seasons. I watched actually the first 6 episodes,
right?
Because the first 3 were so absurd. I felt I needed to pull the peels of the onion layer a little bit further back to try and get some more. So essentially, Ryoma is the son of an incredibly famous Japanese tennis player who was huge in the 80s, but retired at a young age. Like, as he was about to enter his prime, he retired and entered a life of seclusion. So there's sort of like this mystical, you know, what could have been, how good could he have been? And so, you know, Ryoma, no one really knows who he is except the aunt. But it quickly becomes apparent that he's something special. And there's these 2 really creepy journalists that are trying to...
What is it? There's a magazine that covers young boys and girls tennis. I didn't know that was a thing ever, but apparently it's a thing in Japan.
I mean, I'll be honest. So my brother played tennis all the way through college. He was a D1 athlete, and I played tennis up until high school. And then
which is why I picked this particular series, was because you actually have some background in tennis.
They do have, or they did, now it's probably just a website, but there's like a billion youth tournaments. So there's some sort of publication that covers and ranks kids so that their parents can brag and argue about it.
Right.
But yeah, so people start to realize who he is. And one of the cool things about it was, as I got further along, episodes 4, 5, and 6, they start to explore the father's character a little more, which provided some humor and some entertainment. But the main thing that every episode ends with some kind of twist, and it's usually the same twist. It's the guy he was playing didn't know this. No tennis player in history has said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play it with my non-dominant hand to mess with this guy.
And he does.
And in like the first 3 episodes, he plays as a righty, and then at the end, when they're like, I can still beat you, he goes, that was my weak hand. And they're like, oh my God, he was a lefty. Like, what?
And then he says his signature catchphrase, which is "Mada Mada Dane," which means "No, not yet," or like "You have a long way to go." Which, from a 12-year-old, you probably want to kick that kid in the face.
I know. You're like, you little pissant.
I know, right? Like, he's very unlikable in my mind.
Right. So it was a trip, man, and it was. I mean, I found parts of it entertaining, and like I said, I kind of really liked his father as a character.
Yeah.
So when his father went into seclusion, he like went to live at a temple. He's sort of like living in like a Buddhist temple that has like a tennis court on it. But he lays around all day looking at ladies' nudie magazines.
Right.
And he keeps getting caught with them. And the girls go, what is this smut? And you're like, how is this relevant to anything?
He's like that version. There was like an archetype of like the guy that's so good that like he doesn't need to do anything but watch porn all day. That's a I don't know, weirdly enough, that there's enough characters in anime about that I think exist, that like this amazing character who's so good at something that he decided to take on a porn addiction. Like, so I think that's a pretty good summary. And I think for me, the reason why I wanted you to really dive into this, because you had some idea of the sport itself. I know when I watched it, I needed a little bit of an idea of like the interactions of tennis, and maybe throughout the way you could be the expert that explains things to me. But I think it's a good explanation of sports anime for several reasons. The reason why I personally took it as far as I did, and I kind of enjoyed it, is this anime, as long as other sports anime, are very low risk, right? You can watch something like Future Diary, like we did last week, and it'll stress you out after one episode because it's so disturbing and sad, or like the emotions are heavy. This one, the
world is not at
risk.
Match. The world is not at risk.
The stakes are at very worst, you lose one tournament and then you might have to do it again sometime, or you lose your spot as a regular. But at the end of the day, that's fine. And for someone like me as a young kid who really enjoyed anime, I needed those kind of breaks in my day to really just look at the blue skies that were in the background, you know, notice that like it's always a sunny day in some of these anime, you know, it's always someone's always laying on the grass. Like I always felt relaxed watching these kind of things. And so for me, I really appreciated that in general. But
so I want to ask you about this. So in the first match, the first episode, we see Ryoma is sort of like at like an independent youth tournament. Yeah. But after that, we shift to a school, and he's clearly like new to this school because no one knows who the heck he is. And he's going out for the tennis team, and it's made aware that he is a 7th grader. Right. And so he's getting hassled by all these older guys, which, by the way,
they're 24-year-olds easily. Like apparently,
and they're like, he's an 8th grader, and you're like, wait a minute.
Like you see Momo for like the first time, you're like, no, them MFers is 24. Like this story is small child faces men in their 20s, the show. Because like you watch it, and you're like, there's no way that guy is 13.
And he's talking in a voice like this.
Yeah, he's like, what? Hi, I'm 13. I can't wait to be able to drive.
And I know that there's tall people and short people, but he's like 6'6" in like 8th grade.
Everybody is like an Abercrombie and Fitch model post college.
So you know, and so when he gets there, and I know that this is part of the character, but when he gets there, he gets introduced to this other character called, I think it was Horio. Yeah. And Horio likes to talk a lot of game, but he actually has no skill. But he's like, I've played tennis for 2 years. I got to be honest with you. If someone came and tried out for the team in 7th grade and they played tennis for 2 years, they'd be like, great. What about the other 10 years? Like, kids who play tennis in high school competitively have been playing since 4 or 5 years old. Right. Like that. I mean, not all schools. If you don't have a competitive team, then you don't have kids that did that. But this school is apparently the best of the best of the best.
The best.
So you're not getting in, bud. Right. You're going to be the ball catcher.
Well, I think the big thing this also highlights is the idea of club sports in Japan, or just clubs in general. What you may have noticed about a lot of anime is they're a lot of times set in high school. A lot of them are, or middle school, or the version of middle school.
Is that playing to their audience, though?
Yeah, I would say so. This would be in the shonen genre, and shonen means young boy. And so it does play the audience. But, like, I think most anime, even they're seinen or shonen or whatever, shoujo, a lot of them take place in high school because I guess it's A, easy to draw. B, everybody's gone through it, so they kind of can relate to it regardless. And it's just a thing. Like everybody, and I guess that people like schoolgirl outfits, and it's also like easier to draw people in the same outfit too, I guess.
Right. Well, Ryoma wears the same polo in every friggin' episode, but I suppose that's every animation. Like, you ever watch Doug? Like, Doug never changed out of his, like, green sweater vest.
This green sweater vest and pants. And I think the one thing to note that you should know about, like, this in terms of Japan is, in Japan, your club is very important. And, in fact, when you pick one out of school, when you get into school, the club is the first thing you do. You take your classes and you find out what your club is. And that becomes, like, your second job, essentially, is to be a student and to do your club. And so for a lot of kids, there is high stakes to playing tennis.
Are you trying to create status and social networking?
I don't think it's because of that. I think Japan culturally just has a spirit of, like, whatever you do, you try to be the best at it. Like, whether it be a guy who shines shoes
Suckers.
or whether, yeah, it's. I think it's
welcome to the land of mediocrity, baby.
So that's kind of something to, like, note about it, is that, like, a lot of anime, if you're seeing, like, why do they care so much about XYZ sport, it's because your club is, like, the thing you'll do for the rest of that time of your life. Yeah. And that's what you're going to be doing. And you're going to be dedicating yourself. Just going to, right after school, you're going to be putting all your time into that club. Okay. And it doesn't have to be sports either. It can be, like, debate or math. It's just a big thing there.
Yeah, sports more fun.
Yeah, sports is more fun to follow. So I
remember, by the way, I went to one debate club meeting in high school. And I guess as, like, a 9th or 10th grader, I didn't understand the concept of debate club.
Right.
And I showed up at this random meeting, and the What used to fly back to San Capistrano? The swallows?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, or like whatever birds used to fly back to San Capistrano in California. And I walk into his debate club meeting and they're like, all right, guys, we're going to argue whether we should or should not let them return. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? There's no background. I have no idea why we're arguing. How are we going to let or not let a bird return to San Capistrano? But they were just practicing the ability to debate anything.
Take out a position, yeah.
Silly or not.
Right, yeah. And
Clearly,
I think that's the thing.
out.
It's like the idea of like filling a skill that you're gonna hopefully get better at over time, and then maybe suss out who's gonna be great at it. But
yeah, but in life, most people who debate well, they're fairly unlikable.
Right, they're all Ryomas. It's like a group of Ryomas.
Yeah,
they're all gonna end with Mada Mada Dane, and then switch to their left hand for some reason.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of introduce you also to what are the key components of sports anime.
Okay.
Usually in a sports anime, you're kind of following an underdog story. In this case, you're not. But in most cases, you are following someone who is just being introduced to the sport for the first time. That is usually followed by the next step of this hero's journey, which is they find out they have one skill that they are superior in that sport.
Okay.
So and through no fault of their own. So
Ryoma is good at every skill.
So Ryoma kind of breaks that mold a little bit, but for other sports anime that we can touch on, like Kuroko no Basket, there's one guy which is a basketball anime. He's good at being unnoticeable, right? And so he can get around people, and he's really good at passing because of it. So
this makes total sense, though, in terms of introducing people to a sport if they don't know it, because the aforementioned character Horio, while he's a little annoying and he is essentially there whenever there's like a plot advance that you sort of kind of have to understand how tennis or how that piece of being at school or whatever would work. All the other 7th graders turn to him and he's like, oh my God, this is important because ABC 1, 2, 3. And you're like, thanks for that tidy explanation.
Well, that's the great thing. No, that leads me to my next point about the sports anime. Sports anime, unlike other anime, are spoken exclusively through internal monologues and exterior narrators, which means what usually drives the story, because like how do you make something like sports interesting in an animated medium which has movement and skill? It's things that you can respect, and it's usually what they try to do is more like a chess match of the mind. And the way they try to do that is that the internal monologue is the player going, I'm noticing he's doing that, so I'm going to do this, and it's a battle of who figured the other one out earlier.
And tennis lends itself very easily to that because it is a one-on-one sport.
Right,
if it were a team sport, I'm sure there are team sport anime. Well, you just said there's a basketball one, even though it probably focuses on one guy. But individual sports are more strategic in that it's a chess piece because it's 1v1. You know?
Exactly.
Is there a golf sports one?
I wish there was. I would love to see if there was one. There's a cheerleading one. There's a figure skating one. There is a American football one, which is ridiculous. And I want to introduce you to it so badly because it's so ridiculous. And there's honestly, there's one for most sports. If not several. Like basketball and baseball have several sports anime.
Well, baseball is used in Japan,
And then with the exterior narrator, there's usually one person who's the washed-up version of the main character, who's able to explain, who knows everything that's happening in front of them. Oh, I knew that was a twist serve, and let me explain to you how that happened. So is
that the journalist?
That's the journalist. That is your Horio character, the comic relief, and it's the coach. Because for some reason, you as the person who watches it, reads it, will go, oh, I see what he's trying to do, and the coach will be like, just you wait. Like they're the ones to like keep your interest, to be like, I saw something you don't, but check out 2 or 3 pages or 2-3 minutes later when they does this crazy thing and I saw it coming the whole time. That is always going to happen in a sports anime, and in tennis, as you said, it's a 1-to-1, so it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
The fourth component of a sports anime is usually love stories are non-existent. If you had any hope of him getting involved with that female character, it's not going to happen. It's just there to be someone who cares about the character.
Yeah.
So when they get hurt or they fail or they lose, they're kind of the
we show compassion. It gives them like a humanity of sorts.
They're the person to be the safety net for that character, because when they feel like they can't do it anymore, it's good to have a foil that always cares about them, even when they neg him, like Ryoma does with those two girls, apparently.
Well, and that's another thing. Like, so that girl who like gets a crush on him, she shows Ryoma to her girlfriend, and her girlfriend's like, "Ooh, he's so hot." I'd be like, "Get out of here! That's my man!" Like, get out of here.
Yeah, and
don't be thirsty over the dude I showed you. Like,
I showed you the tennis player. You find your own. Here, there's 24-year-old men over there that you can check out.
Go hang out with Viper.
Yeah. Hey, girl.
So there's this character in the show, and he goes by the nickname Viper because he has a shot called the snake shot, which is not dirty in any way, shape, or form. But just to really lay on the fact that his thing is snakes and Viper, when he's sulking around like he has no spine, he's just like...
Yeah, he always is in like a forward position of his arms, and he's like... Apparently he's got like a lisp. He's got a lisp that's so bad, apparently, that like he can't help but be like, seriously, Ryoma, this is tennis, and we're the Seigaki regulars.
It's so weird.
I know. And then the final component, and Garrett, you're touching really well into the rules of sports anime, is that, and this is the most important, is sports are usually given a superhero-esque abilities. And that is the last piece that I think is really important, because how do you get young boys and girls who read these things or watch these anime into a sport? You make it seem like it's a comic book. And that's why you will get insane, nonsensical abilities that they're calling out. They're like, snake shot or dunk smash. And like, it's there to make the idea of the sport interesting, but it's often like superhuman in their ability to do it. And we'll talk more about the shots in general, because I really want your take as a as a former tennis player. But did any of those like key components come through when you were watching it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But are you saying that the underlying reason for this is to get kids into sport?
It's funny.
You have to trick kids into sport?
Well, it's
how about this? You open up the door, you throw a ball out the door. Either your dogs or your kids will go play with it. Like that.
Or they're going to be the kid that reads anime all day, in which case this is the best you're going to get. Like me. So,
but you love anime, but you loved sports too.
I did love sports. I was kind of an in-betweener, so to speak. So with the anime that come here, and like this is a really good report. There's a American football anime out there called iShield 21, which I mentioned earlier. iShield 21 was actually sponsored by the NFL to get Japanese kids to understand.
So it's priming that fandom,
right? But
one day you will have disposable income, and you will buy a Shannon Sharp jersey with it.
And you'll kneel, and you'll be like, "Wait, what am I doing? Like, I don't know what's happening because I'm from Japan." But it actually has a really cool way of like explaining the game, but also making it interesting enough. Like they don't just tackle like one guy, and they also have like moves based on their team name. Like there was one they called like the Neptunes, like so it's got an ocean theme. And so when a guy tries to tackle someone, like anchors fly out of his hands and tackle the guy.
So it's like Blitz.
Yes, it's like except
it's
they don't
like the arcade
they don't
game
Hogan
Blitz.
leg drop the guy afterwards. Like it's got fair game involved. And it's real, like it's realistic to the sport, but like
for those who are listening in and watching that missed this by a generation or so, they came out with this arcade game, which eventually I think went to consoles, but it was called NFL Blitz, and it was not full team on team; it was a few players versus a few players, and it sort of added in like absurd wrestling moves and violence and all that, and,
or like you could throw 90 yards and not think about it. You can like run to the other your own end zone and throw it 90 yards, which
it was sort of like it was their answer to NBA Jam.
Right,
he's heating up.
Yes, and I think but that's a way to get kids into sports, is kind of make it seem more fantastical than like the hard work and like exercise that you're gonna have to learn to get to it. So I want you, as someone who appreciates tennis, if I was to be someone, if I'm a 12-year-old like Echizen Ryoma, and this is my first introduction to tennis, how realistic is the Prince of Tennis to the actual sport?
They use the right scoring system.
Which, first off, explain that to me. So let me be the noob in this situation. Why does the score go 0, 15, 30, 40,
and then game, like, and also love a zero. Like, can you explain some of those things? Because
because that's the way it's always been.
That's the way it's always been, and shut up about it.
Right. I don't actually have answers for you on that. There was a time in my life when I knew, and I looked it up, and why it's called deuce when you're tied. Advantage makes sense.
Yeah, but deuce is weird.
Right.
It's like the Michael Bay version of it, because, like, if you remember, I remember watching the movie Armageddon with Ben Affleck's a commentary on it, and this is like a little bit of a tangent, but he goes, there was the scene where Bruce Willis tries to explain how it's easier to turn drillers into astronauts than astronauts into drillers, and Ben Affleck went to Michael Bay and said, "Hey, Michael Bay, why is that? Why is it that it's easier to turn drillers into astronauts than it is to turn astronauts into drillers?" And Michael Bay said, "F you, that's why." And then he goes on stuff. So I never brought it up again. That made me think about it. I guess I got my Michael Bay answer there.
Right, and I'm someone out there's gonna get mad. I'm sure there's a legitimate reason that I just don't know.
Yeah.
Well, some of the theory that they use is like really interesting. I mean, you know,
do they explain the rules well, like with new concepts, like how a serve works, how how points are changed and stuff?
No, I don't think that they do. So essentially, most matches are scored. You play at least 3 sets, best of 3 sets, and if you're in a major, you play best of 5 sets.
Right.
I get for the sake of the show and because you're in high school playing 1 set, and most, like, if I walk up on the street and I challenge you, like, no one wants to be there for 2 hours. let's keep it, like, abbreviated. But, some of the stuff really made a lot of sense. Like, when he's, like, playing Viper, he keeps hitting the ball to the baseline, which is the very back line, which, he's using strategy. He's keeping so Viper being older and bigger and stronger, if he's allowed to get to the net and volley and close in on him, he can really take advantage of his size against Ryoma. However, if Ryoma keeps him on the baseline back, he's sort of limiting the damage he can do from back there.
Right.
However, I don't believe that just because he has to squat at the baseline to take the shot, that he uses 3 times as much energy as he would otherwise. I've never heard that explanation.
I feel like they took a lot of liberties with, like, physics and energy expansion.
Well, so that's another thing. So with a serve, when you watch a tennis match, almost inevitably, and I'm going to speak specifically to men's tennis because I did not hang out anywhere near as much time around women's tennis, but the first serve is almost always the power serve.
Right.
It's that guy is trying to hit a corner in the service box, and he's trying to do it with maximum force. If he gets it in, great. If he doesn't, or he hits the net, there's always a second serve. The second serve will always be slower. Always be slower because it's more controlled, because that first one was like a gimme. Like, I'm going to try and hit it as hard as I can, and the second one has to be, and it always has some level of English on it.
Right.
So, you're putting a spin on the ball so that when it lands, instead of going straight up at the guy, it spins, depending on whether you're righty or lefty, it spins away from the serve. However, somehow, through unexplained physics, Ryoma can put the opposite spin on the ball, which to jam up and hit the player in the face every single time. I mean,
that first match, it made the first match so violent, right? So, like, these guys are playing tennis because one guy was swinging his racket so hard next to a girl's face, and Ryoma did not like it, and he was making fun of the guy, so they had a match, and then the guy didn't like that he was losing, so he chucked his racket full feet at his face.
He hit him in the face.
And then he's like, "Oh yeah," and then he does, like, several twist serves that, like, smack the guy in the face, and the guy's like, "No more!" And I remember, like, I'm like, wow, this is a very violent game of tennis.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, and I think that to me was like, it makes it interesting because it gives it that
also,
kind of, like, an element of, like, fighting.
Also, Ryoma is the only person on the face of the planet Earth that can hit a ball that. So, to give people a little background, when you play in a sanctioned event, there's a judge, and sometimes multiple judges that will call whether a ball is in or out. But a lot of times when you're just playing someone straight up, it's an honor system.
Right.
Like, if it's on your side and the guy who hit it can't see it, If you think it was out, you call it was out, and he has to respect that.
Right.
You know, and if you think it was in, you have to be honest.
Right.
Of course, they try and dramatize it in this to be like this epic, oh, he must respect the call. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, okay. So this guy's cheating, and he's Ryoma's hitting it just a fraction in on the line.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, it's out. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not my call. So Ryoma's like, you have much yet to learn. And he manages to hit the ball so that when it hits the ground, it stops. That doesn't happen. That is impossible.
On a smooth surface with a fuzzy ball. Like, even I could be like, there's no way that's possible. I can't imagine it becomes a dreidel somehow randomly. Like, in the middle of nowhere. Especially if it's going forward. Like, physics does not work yet. Mada done. I thought that was so weird as well. And so much so that I created a little game for the two of us, Garrett.
Okay.
This is called the... Kyle lists the Wikia page for moves, tennis moves from the Prince of Tennis, and Garrett has to tell me it's one of three things. 3, not even close to being possible and or functional.
Okay.
B, it's possible but not functional, meaning like you could do it, but like, what's the point? And then the last one is you should use it, you should try it, maybe practice it while you're home. So those are your 3 things. It's basically it's not possible at all. This is stupid. It's all anime cartoon nonsense. Or it's you can do it but don't, and then practice it, give it a go. It's actually kind of cool. All right, so the first thing, which I think is the least offensive one, because these are all people from the Seigaku regulars who we'll touch upon in a second, but this is Momo's signature move, which is called the Dunk Smash. Momoshiro's signature move is to finish off lobs. However, Momoshiro's Dunk Smash is different than normal smashes in that he uses the momentum from running to hit the smash through perfect timing by jumping forward instead of the usual jumping backwards to hit a smash, thus making Momoshiro's Dunk Smash to be twice as powerful and more effective than a normal smash, meaning he can dunk it so hard the ball, it's like really, you see a lob, you're just like, oh, not in my house. Which category does that fall under?
Absolutely stupid logic, but sure. Momo is a big, strong guy.
Yeah.
And if a ball gets lobbed, which, by the way, no one just hits lobs to you. Here's how a lob gets hit to you. You hit a previously really good shot, which puts the opposing player usually at a position, so their only hit that they can get on it is to put it in the air.
Or what I learned probably was that also, like, if someone's playing the net too much, that you want to hit it over their head.
You could try and go over them.
Right.
But that wouldn't make sense for Momo, because his whole thing is that he runs forward at it. So if he can run forward at a ball behind him, he's looping around the earth in order to...
I would love it if that was like the ultimate form, because here's the thing. These moves get even more ridiculous. Imagine he's like planetary smash, and he like runs full speed, circles the earth like Zell from Final Fantasy VIII, and just like dunk smashes it.
Here's the deal. The move is fine.
Yeah.
It's totally acceptable. Any great competitive tennis player, if a ball is lofted up and they can get in position, should have a really good smash. Yes, sometimes they overthink it, or they're tired and they put it into the net, or they put it long, but fine. It's just not like... Whereas if you have a special serve, you can constantly put yourself in a position to use that special serve.
Right.
For a lob, you need someone to lob something to you. So if I'm playing the guy with the dunk smash, I don't lob it to him.
That's true. So it's got a little bit of offness to it.
Yeah.
The second one is Ryoma Echizen's move, which is called the twist serve. A serve Ryoma typically performs with his right hand, though he needs to be hit with the opponent's dominant hand. The twist serve is Ryoma's most notable shot. The twist serve is referred to as the kick serve, which is similar to the twist serve, but is considered to be less powerful and easier to perform than the twist serve. In that he performs it by it hits the opponent's, and instead of bouncing away from the opponent, bounces towards him, and most times in towards their face. Is the twist serve, Garrett, which you see many times, is it not possible, improbable, or you should try it?
Okay, try and follow me.
Right.
Because maybe I'm misunderstanding what I'm seeing in the anime. You can only To my knowledge, you can only spin it one way.
Yeah.
And so if you are serving right-handed and you are serving to a right-handed person, you're only going to spin it away from them on their dominant side.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do. Now, I suppose if you were facing a right-handed person
Right.
and you served it lefty, you could put the English on it so that it serves into them.
But you can't intentionally like marionette it to hit the person's face, like is what Ryoma makes it seem.
No, I mean, you can. I've certainly seen people be able to, especially if you have someone taller, and so like the ball's coming from a higher angle, they can get it down so that the ball seems to be coming up at you, you know? But when you're serving right-handed or left-handed, you can only spin it one way.
Right.
To my knowledge, you cannot spin it the other way because I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would.
He would have to like hit it so like he was doing this like to make it work.
Yeah, I don't know how.
So would you qualify that as improbable, probable, and try it, or not even close?
What he does is not possible, but the concept
of it is
the essence of putting a significant amount of twist on a ball to getting it away from opponent is something that happens in almost every match.
Okay.
But not the angles at which he is able to achieve. Right. I mean, I guess that's why he's Ryoma.
Yeah, he's the Prince of Tennis, of course.
Yes,
only royalty can do the twist serve. So this is another one of the Seigaku regulars whose name is Fuji. Mm-hmm. He's the one with the eyes that are. They always have a character that has like these very slit eyes that like don't open past the like. So you
he wears glasses, right?
No, that's a different character. That's the. We're gonna get into Seigaku regulars, but the Fuji character is kind of very smart, but he's able to do what's called the disappearing serve. It's otherwise known as a cut serve, but Fuji puts spin on the ball as he drops it. This particular underhand serve makes the ball also disappear. While not as fast or powerful as most serves, many people are caught off guard by the way the ball abruptly cuts to the left and, in a sense, disappears.
So I didn't see this. Are you telling me someone serves underhand?
Yeah.
Okay. No. Look at every piece of film and celluloid of tennis since, you know who serves underhand? Picnic volleyball players. Picnic volleyball players serve underhand. Or if you and I go out on the court and maybe we're not very good because we're rusty, I'll say, hey, I'll start a volley. And I drop the ball and I hit it over to you.
Right. But apparently, according to this, it's to give it enough English. So it's to spin the ball as it drops so that it disappears. And it abruptly cuts to the returner's right. As opposed, so that it looks like you can't see it anymore. He can make a magic trick out of it.
I have never seen an underhand serve. And you could go back to frickin' Rod Laver in the 50s and 60s, and you can go back earlier in that. I don't know anyone who serves underhand. You know who else serves underhand? The Hoosiers. In Hoosiers, shoot underhand free throws. But in tennis, I've never seen an underhand serve. So,
but is it possible to have you ever been served something that's cut so abruptly that it disappears from your vision?
At this point in history, don't you think if it was feasible and advantageous that someone would have done it?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, look at submarine pitchers in baseball. A couple of them get away with it, but you know why everyone doesn't do it? Because it's not the most efficient way to do it.
That's true. And I guess if you're doing it slow, a serve, someone's going to take advantage of that. So, so we're going to put that under the improbable.
Yeah.
Not impossible.
Yes. Also, it may disappear, but it's coming at you at a very slow rate of speed. So you have an opportunity to see it again.
To dunk smash it. I'm learning, Garrett. So the next move is called the Zero-Shiki, or 0-degree shot. And this is the Captain Tezuka's move. Now, he's able to do a backspin drop shot that once it touches the ground, it rolls back to the net. to the amount of backspin and instead of bouncing, make it impossible to return. So essentially, if you're following my hand, Garrett, it goes, so this is the net. It goes over the net, stops, and then just does this. So, at 0 degrees.
No. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can put a lot of spin on a ball and you can make it do funky things, but you can't stop force.
It's like physics be damned in this anime.
Well, so think about golf, right? Like, they put a spin on a ball so that they can land it further than a hole on the green,
right?
And it pulls back, but there's no like buoyancy to a golf ball. Well, I don't want to say there's no buoyancy, but it's not meant to bounce, whereas the tennis ball is like meant to bounce.
It's rubber, yeah, it's meant to bounce.
My issue with a lot of these, with even having a special like this, is so much of tennis, like, yes, it is like playing chess because you're trying to like mentally wear out the other person, but also you only have so much time to think before the ball comes out.
Yeah, you don't have the time to monologue in your head like they can in this anime. Like, oh man, when I see this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be able to do that. And it's like, no, you're like, oh crap, it's coming back again. So you're saying not at all possible to make a ball die and then just roll
die and dribble back? No, because why wouldn't you hit it every time? Why would you hit any other shot?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I feel like if that was your thing, there would be no reason to not just do it all the time. Like, oops, I did it again. So the last shot is from our boy Kaido, the hither of the Seigaku regulars who can perform the snake shot, which you've actually gotten to see. So the snake shot is a forehand or backhand shot that has an offset topspin that causes it to curve to the corners of the court, making the opponent run around and lose stamina. This is done by Kaido shifting his weight from his right leg to his left and swinging his racket upwards while putting a topspin on the ball with I love that he used centrifugal force. Like a human has like the ability to have like amazing centrifugal force, and then it makes it go over the net in a crescent moon-shaped fashion. So essentially, if I was to imagine how they present it, it's like it goes wide out and then bounces to the opposite side, and so you're constantly like doing shuttles between the side to side. Garrett, is that possible, impossible, or improbable?
Decidedly medium. And here's why. Watch any tennis match. The whole point of a volley is, if you can gain control of the volley, is to constantly have your opponent running to opposite sides of the court. Because if you get them tired, they're going to make a mistake. That's common sense. If you can stand in one place and you can, or relatively close, but you can have them running around, and you have to make them use both their forehand and their backhand, it makes perfect sense. Now, will the shot ever look like the end loop at King Dakar at like Six Flags Great Adventure, where it's just like, I don't know that it's ever going to look like that. But no, well, like, so for example, like we talked about the twist serve, the more realistic twist serve. If you have someone, if I serve right-handed to a right-handed guy, and when it hits the ground, it bounces away from him. He has to try and reach for it and get it. This now puts him out of position because he's saving the shot and getting it back over to me. And if I can get it to the other side of the court, he's now running all the way over. Maybe he doesn't make it. So it makes perfect sense. But to the dramatic, effect that they're doing, like, again, they're just, it's a cartoon, so maybe I should lighten up. But it's
so this is one of the more probable ones then.
Yeah, I would say of all the ones that you said, if we go back, I don't know if you wrote it down. Dunk Smash is fine, it's just dumb because the concept of the twist serve, I get. You definitely serve things to spin away from people if it makes sense, but you can't make it spin both ways.
Then there's the serve that disappears because you
stupid.
The 0 degree where it stops and rolls back towards the net.
Even more dumb.
and then the snake shot.
And the snake shot is back to like medium.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that they take creative license with most of tennis being played.
Well, they're trying to make it seem like superheroes.
Right, exactly. So that gives us to our final thing, which is like the Avengers, the superheroes of the Seigaku regulars. These are the people who are the best of all of the, tennis players in all of Japan, if not the world, who can do superhero. Like if you think about it, there's a guy who can make the ball stop on the court without bouncing and roll backwards.
And they get really excited because when you become one of them, you get to wear a Harlem Globetrotter jacket. Like.
It's true, and you'll wear it all the time. Doesn't matter the weather. Doesn't matter what it is. You will.
It's like watching any movie that romanticizes American high school life, and the guy wearing the varsity letter jacket.
Yeah, the Letterman jacket's one of those things that we make fun of in the United States. There, it's like, oh my God, do you see it? He's got Seigaku on his back. That means it's Seigaku regular. So, what's great about the superheroes is that, the great thing about when you watch sports anime is that they have to make each character interesting. And in order to make each character interesting in any anime, you have to have, especially in shonen anime, one-dimensional character quips. And you already know about Kaido's, which is he's the snake boy. He likes to hiss when he walks around. He's gruff like.
Which, by the way, it kept reminding me. Of Dodgeball.
Yeah.
Where Global Jim is like,
do. Yeah, he's a part of the Vipers or whatever they're called, the Cobras.
Yeah.
And so that's his thing. Then we have Momoshiro, who you meet in the second episode. He's the dumb but capable guy who's he's so carefree that he doesn't care, but he's so strong.
Yeah.
And he is part of the regulars, but he can't be a starter because he hurt his ankle. So he's gonna has to bring his way up. And him and Kaido are both 8th graders. So mind you, these men, I'm going to call them men. These 24-year-old men are in 8th grade. And then there's the 3rd years or the 9th graders in this school. And one of them is Fuji, who's the one who's got the slit eyes and stuff like that. His thing is that he is he's kind of the character that can do everything. He's like the Swiss Army knife of tennis. And then you get to a character that his name's Tezuka, who's the captain, and he's the guy that who doesn't take no lip from no one, as we would say before. And he's just he's kind of more of a kudere than Ryoma is. That he just doesn't really give too much of any. And then there's the pair of Kikumaru and Oishi being the vice captain, and their thing is that they're just the perfect tandem together. Their personalities match. One is very carefree, the other one's no nonsense. One is the good net player, the other one's the good baseline player, and they're perfect together as a pair. And then there's finally the guy that kind of gets kicked out for Ryoma, and he's always constantly trying to get
wait, Ryoma makes the team? You SOB. You ruined this for me.
Yeah, and then he kicks out a character who is the known Megane character, or the glasses character. The guy that's always like this, and any guy.
Oh, I'm actually the episode 7. I think is when he faces off against him, because he's we're sort of seeing how he's studying up. He's very studious. He has a notebook that he takes down. And yeah.
So he's the classic glasses character that does data on everything. 2 things from the glasses.
Sabermetrics?
Yes. He has what's called data tennis, which means he knows exactly where to put a ball with the lowest probability that they can return it. And that is something that he can do with math or something.
Which is great, because at the end of episode 6, after he puts all the data in the computer and he's going to play Ryoma, and he just stares at the computer and goes, Ryoma's chance to win. 0%.
He's the classic glasses character of close his laptop and goes, as I expected. That's his thing. And another classic thing of the Megane character, or the glasses character, is when they push their glasses up, there's always a shine to it, so that makes them look diabolical.
Right.
And there's always people that do that on Instagram, or where they all put up their glasses and their eyes just glow.
Is there a laugh? Because generally it's a
yes. They usually rest the elbow on the arm, and then they push it up, and then the eyeglasses catch the light so much that they look evil. But that character is the one that gets kicked out. Sorry, spoiler alert. Gets kicked out for Ryoma, and he's constantly trying to get back his spot on the regulars. But in this case, just to kind of give you an idea, is that it tries to introduce tennis, it tries to introduce characters, and it tries to make it seem interesting by making everything pretty one-dimensional and trying to give people he can't it's not so much that Kaido does the snake shot. He's only kind of there to do that thing. He's only there to be the baseline player. He doesn't. It doesn't. It's not meant to grow and be a much better at be an all-around tennis player like Ryoma might be. And
well, hey, man, look at any high school tennis team across the country, right? Like, there's probably one person who is significantly better than everybody else, and everyone else just has like a role to play.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that is generally what you're going to find with most anime, is that there's the guy who's they're one-dimensional. They have almost superhero type abilities to their play. They have the ability to kind of really get good at the one thing, and that's kind of and then they get kind of cartoony. That's sports anime more than anything is where things get cartoony. I
won't suggest my brother watch this, but as I mentioned, like, he played all the way through D1, but he actually went for a year of high school to tennis high school. Like, he went to
the name. Wait, was it called Tennis High School?
No, it was called it was Boletaries. Everyone referred to it as Boletaries. So Nick Bolletary was, I think he passed, or he's very old.
Right.
But he was a world famous tennis trainer, and like, he had Agassi very young, when Agassi was like 5 years old in Las Vegas and like beating adults. And he started this camp in Tampa or Bradenton, Florida, on the west side of Florida. And the elite of the elite would go there. And eventually it grew and it grew and it grew. And they actually had like a curriculum there. So like, my brother went there for like a half a year or a year. Well, he went 2 summers there, do summer camps. And then he actually got accepted to stay there. And he went through high school classes on a campus, and then every other waking moment of your life was tennis. And he always talks about like the amazing characters you had there. Like, there was this one kid, he came from practically Italian royalty, and really? he would only wear a piece of clothing once. How nice is that, right? So he would have, and we're talking 1990, 1991, back then, he would wear $200, $300, $400, $500 shirts, and then in laundry day, he'd just toss them out in the hallway, and all the kids who like didn't have that money were like, oh, like trying to get like the cool shirts. But there's, I'm sure he ran into people that, while they didn't hiss while they played tennis, there were probably some really interesting characters.
I bet if he was an animated character, he'd be named Cannoli Spagnoli, and he'd be walking around the corner going, and he'd be eating spaghetti as he walks around, and his moves are called like the meatball shot, and like it'd be a like, I'm seeing this happen. He's going to be in the future seasons of Prince of Tennis, which is done, by the way. This is a non-ongoing anime, so it does.
But it lasted like 5 or 6 years.
It does, and has several movies too, which is something that people like this property enough.
There's no reason.
So what we're going to do, as we always end our episodes with, is we're going to give this a Weeb and a Noob score. The Weeb score, once again, is for people, if this is your first time watching, is what is this in terms of your total content submission? Is this important for you to watch as part of your digest, or can you kind of put it away? For a Noob, it's like, is there a lot of barriers to entry? Is it really hard to watch? Is it something that doesn't really like spark the interest for a newcomer? So for me, I would give this a 6.5, because I think for me, when I first watched it when I was younger, it had more value than it does now. But at the same time, it does. And I also didn't play tennis. It did make something of a topic that I thought was kind of hoity-toity and for rich people more interesting. It gave it a little bit of spice. The characters were interesting. It's a little dated now, and also like, it's relaxing. Like, at the very least, it's a relaxing anime for you. If you want to take a break from the really heavy stuff that you might watch, why not take a few episodes? It's on Hulu, so give it a shot. So I give it a 6.5. What do you give it, Garrett?
I will be a hair more generous than you.
Okay.
I will give it a 7. And honestly, it popped up a full point after you explained the goals of a sports anime, introducing people to sports that might not otherwise be a part of sports, really teaching the sport. Because for me, like, who played tennis and enjoyed tennis, this is dry subject matter.
Right.
So I have no idea who would watch this show.
Right.
But I can appreciate it now more that you mentioned it. I won't hold its datedness. Well, nothing about it has, like, we watched a show the other day that had cell phones in it, but it was flip phones because, so now I know they're trying to bring flip phones back. But the point is that's truly dated to me. I'm not going to rag on its animation because it was a product of its time.
Oh, 90, think about 2001.
They do this one weird animation trick.
With the 9 squares?
Yes! where like they take the court and the middle court
Yeah.
overlays differently. I don't know what effect they were
I think
going.
that was we learned a new program on our computer.
like in Star Wars when they did like swipes.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
George
like-
Lucas learned how to do a swipe.
They found like some way of getting like a Windows 99 screensaver to work over their anime, and they just kind of kept doing it every day. So that's the way I look at it. And I'm with you. But it was, as I said, it was 2001. The music, I say what makes it dated is that it's like, yeah, it's like a lot of guitars. Like if you told me that the lead character was a roller skating kangaroo who wore a backwards baseball cap, I would have believed you. It was very 90s. So yeah, so 6.5.
Ryoma checks in.
Mata Mata Dana as he bounces on his tail. So honestly, so it's actually, I thought you were going to give it a little bit harsher grade, but that means it's good. Before we end, what is the barriers to entry? What is the hardest thing that you think for a new anime person that they have to kind of just get over to enjoy it maybe more?
Well, I mean, I think the topic in itself. Now, keep in mind when I'm giving my scores, I think my scores are always going to be a little, unless I really loathe something.
Right.
For the first 6 months that we do this, I'm guessing my scores are going to be a little higher because
Right.
I'm going to be a little more forgiving because it's going to be the first time I'm seeing a lot of things.
Right.
So you can get down on something like when we spoke in the last episode about girlfriend archetypes, about like crotch to the face humor.
Yeah.
You've seen it in 70 anime. I've seen it in one, and it was funny in the one. By the time I get jaded, I'm sure I'll start to take negative points away.
Yeah.
I would say that the barriers for entry for this are subject matter.
Yeah.
And an entirely, you are right, he is an entirely unlikable lead character.
Right.
And you know, the more I think about it, and sometimes I try and form an opinion, but when we come here and we actually hash it out, it sort of changes in my head how I feel about it.
Right.
I think I really did. I mean, I watched 6 episodes. Everything you've given me, you're like, watch 3 or 4 episodes. And I watched 6 here, and I did watch more because it's got a little less flavor. It's a little more like, okay, it's on TV.
You can just keep popping it.
Yeah. But because I do like tennis.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have an interest at all, you know, I kept wanting to see the stupid thing they do and go, oh,
yeah,
how, you know,
right.
But if you've no interest
in tennis, maybe not.
Yeah,
So,
and a terrible human being of a protagonist.
Yes. So as we close out another episode, I legitimately want to hear your thoughts out there. What did you think about Prince of Tennis? Was this the one that introduced you to the idea of sports anime? Did it make you interested in tennis? Is there other anime that you want us to bring up in future episodes that are even better examples of what a sports anime is all about? We want to make sure that this conversation keeps going because ultimately, once again, much like a new person like here would be, we want you to have a better language in terms of how to understand and appreciate this great medium. So let us know what you think below, but any final thoughts before we end, Garrett?
Nope, just that physics don't exist.
With that being said, and we now live in the hellscape that is the physics of the world of the Prince of Tennis, we wish you a happy, happy day, and see you later.
Peace out, y'all.
Become a Weeb and Noob regular by smashing that subscribe button.
Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Let us know if we deserve a backhand or if we hit an ace.
まだまだだね。